Thank you all for coming. Unfortunately, it's not for a very positive announcement. My name is George Nee. I'm the president of the Rhode Island AFL-CIO, and I will start by reading a statement, a press statement that is being sent out to the media and to our membership from the Rhode Island AFL-CIO. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court of the United States today issued a ruling in a case that abandons decades of common sense precedent. The case Janus versus AFSCME, Council 31, overturns sound jurisprudence that was established more than 40 years ago in Abood versus Detroit Board of Education. The unanimous ruling in Abood had allowed states and localities the freedom to choose whether all public employees should pay their fair share for the employment representation they receive. The history of the AFL-CIO demonstrate that we have fought through far more adversity than one Supreme Court decision. The AFL-CIO is an organization of unions, and by its very nature, we depend on cooperation and collective action. This court decision presents a challenge in the short term, but in the long term, we will draw on our successful history of labor organizing to grow even stronger, said Rhode Island AFL-CIO President George Nee. As stated eloquently by AFL-CIO President Richard Trumka, we have never depended on any politician or judge to decide our fate, and we're sure aren't starting now. So with that, first I want to acknowledge all the different unions that are here, and also what's been passed out. We have received very quickly very strong supportive statements from our whole congressional delegation and our governor, and we appreciate that very, very much. I have also seen a social media post by the Rhode Island Democratic Party, which we also appreciate. And Attorney General Kilmartin called me earlier today and indicated that he and other attorney generals are looking at whatever could be done to deal with this situation. And I guess it's nice, you know, when you're in a fight, it's nice to know that you have friends and allies, and we do have many politicians, many community organizations, many faith-based organizations that have already spoken up very strongly against this decision. We're going to be fine. The labor movement has gone through a lot, and we have a sacred obligation to honor the people who came before us, who fought, struck, died, went to jail, got beat up, and we're still here. And we have an obligation to those men and women and families that are going to come after us, that we are certainly not going to be the group or at the time that make sure that we go backwards. We will continue to organize. We have been organizing. Last year was a tremendous year for organizing in our country. And also, the opinion of the labor movement is at an all-time high. And I think that's part in due to what's happening in our country. And people see that there is a strong connection between a middle-class lifestyle and the American labor movement. And we are never going to end income inequality unless we have a strong labor movement. So for those of us that have done this for a long time, sometimes we refer to ourselves as the people's lobby, because if we don't have a strong labor movement, other working people who aren't members of unions, lifestyle and standard of living is also going to go down. So we'll be fine, we'll grow. We're not going to give up. We've never give up. I used to tell my kids, I was thinking of them today, so I always used to tell the kids, never give up, keep on trying, don't get discouraged. So that's our message of the day. We don't give up, we keep fighting. We have that obligation, and with the people, men and women that are in this room and represent the people in our state, we look forward to even more progress for the labor movement and the American working people. Be happy to answer any questions. Yes, we expected this. It would have been great to have a press conference today and say it was 5-4, we won. But we didn't. You know, elections have consequences, and unfortunately, the president has the right to nominate Supreme Court justices, and he chose one that has an anti-labor bias, in our opinion. So we lost 5-4.
Do you think this signifies a further weakening of the union movement?
Weakening? No. No, I don't see this as a weakening at all. I think that we have a Supreme Court that is controlled by corporate America. I think our society may be worse off because that's the direction that court's going in right now. But we'll be fine. You know, we've been growing, and in this state we're very strong, and across the country things are actually picking up. I think you can just look to what's happened in some of the states, to quote red states, Arizona and Oklahoma, where teachers, you know, without the advantage of collective bargaining or the official labor movement, have been demonstrating. So if they take away certain things from people, it doesn't mean people aren't going to fight for their rights. In fact, they may not like what the results of this decision are going to be. There may be more labor unrest and problems, and these people are going to say, oh boy, that was not such a good decision in the long run after all. That's what we hope.
Do you encourage labor unrest?
Absolutely. I mean, we never made progress by being nice or by sitting around and accepting the status quo. We get somewhere by fighting, and if that means it's unrest and disruption of the economy and disruption of society, and when workers go on strike, that's labor unrest, and when they fight for their rights, some people declare labor unrest, we're all for it. The more the merrier.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. More to come.
So what concrete steps will Rhode Island labor organizations be taking in response to this moving forward?
Well, I think the first steps will be a thorough analysis of the Supreme Court decision, which obviously hasn't been done at the moment. You know, just came out today. Legal counsels at all of the different organizations that are represented here today will be taking a look at that to see what if any, things we can do to require people to still pay, perhaps, for representation. We will make sure we abide by the Supreme Court decision, and if people choose not to pay agency fee or fair share dues anymore, obviously they have that right, as this decision outlined. So it's a little too early to look at exactly what's been done. In other states, there's been some legislative efforts that have taken place. We may look at that, but it's premature right now to say exactly what we'd be doing.
Do you expect to see people actually take the Supreme Court up on this offer and start to see a drop in due payments?
There could be. You know, in our state right now, there haven't been all that many agency fee or fair share members, depending on the terminology you use. But you know, that option is now available to people, and you know, if you know, it's not a sign of a good citizen. Let's put it this way. We certainly can't have a good society if, for example, people in a city or town didn't like the mayor that got elected and say, okay, I'll take all the services, but I'm not going to pay my taxes. That's akin to what this is all about. So, you know, if people want to be free riders and take advantage of other people and, you know, not pay their fair share, you know, there are people like that. There are selfish people. But the overwhelming majority of people, I think, understand that if you're going to have a strong organization, no matter if it's a union or other organizations, people have to pay to make it happen.
The headline here says that this decision hurts Rhode Island families. Can
Yeah.
you paint a picture for us of who that is, how it impacts them?
Well, as I said before, we look at ourselves as the people's lobby. So, for example, if you have a weakened labor movement, it affects all working families in Rhode Island. For example, we fight for unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, a minimum wage, pay equity issues. All of these issues accrue to both union members and all working families. So this is an attempt. There's no sugarcoating this. In fact, I think I might read this, because I think this was pretty good. You might not have seen this. Justice Kagan, in the dissent opinion, there is no sugarcoating today's opinion. The majority overthrows a decision entrenched in this nation's law and its economic life for over 40 years. As a result, it prevents the American people acting through their state and local officials from making important choices about workplace governance. It does so by weaponizing the First Amendment in a way that unleashes judges now and in the future to intervene in economic and regulatory policy. I think that That sums up a lot. And there are people, believe it or not, that don't think the American labor movement should exist and don't believe workers should have the right to organize. And these forces have been very, very strong after Citizens United. They've made a concentrated effort to destroy the American labor movement because they know that we're the one force in this country that can stand up to the economic royalists, as President Roosevelt once called them. So that's our obligation, to fight not just for our own members, but to create a just and fair society for all working families.